Most gardeners spend hundreds of dollars every year fighting a battle they never seem to win. No matter how many bottles of weed killer they buy, the weeds always come back. But deep in Amish farming communities across America, many families have quietly relied on a simple homemade solution for generations. It costs less than $1 to make, requires no expensive equipment, and can help keep garden rows remarkably clean. The surprising part? This method existed long before modern weed killers filled store shelves. So what is this forgotten Amish formula? Why have generations of Amish gardeners continued using it when modern chemical products became available? And what can it teach us about self-reliance, simplicity, and working with nature instead of constantly fighting against it? The answer reveals far more than a gardening secret. It reveals an entire way of life. On a summer morning in Amish country, the day begins long before sunrise. Lantern light glows softly through farmhouse windows. Horses wait patiently beside wooden barns. Roosters announce the coming dawn as families prepare for another day of work. Across neatly organized gardens, rows of vegetables stretch toward the horizon. Tomatoes climb carefully built trellises. Beans wind around poles. Cabbages form dense green heads beneath the morning dew. To many visitors, one detail stands out immediately. The gardens are remarkably clean. Few weeds compete with the vegetables. Pathways remain orderly. Crops appear healthy and productive. Considering that many Amish families avoid relying heavily on commercial lawn and garden products, outsiders often wonder how they accomplish this. The answer involves practical knowledge passed from one generation to the next. But that's only part of the story. Because the real secret isn't simply a homemade weed solution. It's the mindset behind it. Weeds have challenged farmers for thousands of years. Long before tractors, long before pesticides, and long before hardware stores existed, people struggled with unwanted plants stealing water, nutrients, and sunlight from their crops. Ancient farmers faced the same problem modern gardeners face today. A garden can look perfect one week. Then after a few days of sunshine and rain, weeds seem to appear everywhere. Many modern homeowners respond by purchasing increasingly powerful products. Entire aisles in garden centers are devoted to weed control. Yet despite all this technology, many people still spend every growing season fighting the same endless battle. The Amish approach the problem differently. Rather than searching for complicated solutions, they often begin by asking a simple question. What resources are already available? This question has shaped Amish life for generations. And it leads directly to one of their most practical gardening traditions. Many Amish gardeners have long relied on ingredients commonly found around the home. One traditional mixture often combines ordinary vinegar, a small amount of salt, and a few drops of soap. The ingredients are inexpensive, easy to obtain, and simple to mix. When applied carefully to unwanted weeds during hot sunny weather, the solution can dry out exposed vegetation surprisingly quickly. The vinegar helps damage the plant's surface. The salt contributes to the drying effect. The soap helps the mixture stick to leaves. The result is a practical homemade treatment that generations of gardeners have experimented with and adapted. What surprises many outsiders is not the ingredients themselves. It's how ordinary they are. No special labels. No complicated instructions. No expensive marketing campaigns. Just basic household items used with practical knowledge. But the most remarkable part comes later. Because Amish gardeners understand something many people overlook. The formula alone is not what keeps their gardens clean. Imagine walking through an Amish garden in late July. The air smells of fresh soil and growing vegetables. Children help gather beans while grandparents inspect rows of onions and carrots. At first glance, visitors often focus on the homemade weed treatment. But experienced gardeners notice something else. The gardens are designed to discourage weeds before they ever become a problem. Rows are carefully spaced. Plants are positioned strategically. Mulch covers exposed soil. Cultivation happens regularly. Problems are addressed early. This is one of the biggest differences between Amish gardening and modern gardening. Many modern gardeners react after weeds take over. Amish gardeners often work to prevent the invasion from happening in the first place. And this is where things become even more interesting. Because prevention reflects a much larger Amish philosophy. For the Amish, farming is not simply about producing food. It is often viewed as stewardship. The land is cared for, maintained, and passed on to future generations. Many Amish families work the same fields their parents and grandparents worked before them. Because of this long-term perspective, decisions are often made with decades in mind rather than immediate convenience. A quick solution that damages soil health may not seem attractive if future generations will inherit the same land. This mindset influences everything. Crop rotation, composting, soil building, natural fertilizers, weed management. Even the famous homemade weed formula fits into this broader philosophy. It is not viewed as a miracle cure. It is simply one tool among many. A practical aid that supports careful land management rather than replacing it. What happened next surprised many outsiders who studied Amish farming practices. Many discovered that the healthiest gardens often depended less on products and more on habits. One reason Amish gardens often remain productive is consistency. The work happens every day. A few weeds removed today prevent dozens tomorrow. A small problem noticed early never becomes a large problem later. Morning walks through the garden serve multiple purposes. Plants are inspected. Pests are spotted. Weeds are removed before they spread. Watering needs are identified. Nothing is left unattended for very long. This routine may sound simple. In fact, it is simple. But simple does not mean easy. It requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires showing up repeatedly even when there is no immediate reward. Modern life often encourages quick results. The Amish model rewards steady effort. And nowhere is that difference more visible than in the garden. As the sun rises higher over Amish farmland, gardens often become places of shared work. Parents, children, grandparents, and relatives contribute together. Tasks that might overwhelm one person become manageable when divided among many hands. A child pulls small weeds. A parent cultivates rows. A grandparent shares advice gained through decades of experience. Knowledge moves naturally from generation to generation. Lessons are taught through observation rather than instruction manuals. Visitors often notice how gardening becomes a family activity rather than an individual burden. This community-centered approach creates advantages beyond productivity. It strengthens relationships. It builds responsibility. It preserves traditions. And perhaps most importantly, it keeps practical skills alive. Many modern families have lost opportunities to learn these kinds of skills. But in Amish communities, they remain part of everyday life. Yet even family labor is only part of the story. The deeper lesson lies beneath the soil itself. Ask experienced gardeners about weed control, and many eventually arrive at the same conclusion. Healthy soil changes everything. Amish gardeners frequently invest enormous effort into composting and soil improvement. Kitchen scraps become compost. Animal manure is carefully managed. Organic matter is returned to the earth. Year after year, soil fertility improves. Rich soil supports vigorous vegetable growth. Strong crops shade competing weeds. Healthy plants better utilize available nutrients. The entire garden ecosystem becomes more balanced. In many ways, the famous homemade weed formula attracts attention because it is visible. But healthy soil is the invisible foundation supporting everything else. Without that foundation, even the best weed treatment provides only temporary results. With it, the garden gains resilience. And resilience is one of the defining characteristics of Amish life. Many people assume old-fashioned methods belong in the past. But recent years have caused many families to rethink that assumption. Supply chain disruptions, rising costs, and growing interest in self-sufficiency have renewed curiosity about traditional skills. People want practical knowledge. They want affordable solutions. They want greater independence. The Amish have spent generations preserving exactly those kinds of skills. Not because they predicted modern challenges, but because simplicity has always been central to their culture. The homemade wheat formula represents something larger than gardening. It represents resourcefulness. It represents creativity. It represents the ability to solve problems using available resources instead of constantly purchasing new products. That lesson extends far beyond the garden gate. And this brings us to perhaps the most valuable takeaway of all. The Amish way of dealing with weeds offers several lessons modern viewers can appreciate. First, simple solutions are often overlooked. Complexity is not always better. Sometimes the most effective answer is surprisingly basic. Second, prevention frequently matters more than treatment. A little effort applied consistently can prevent major problems later. Third, practical skills remain valuable. Technology changes. Markets change. Products change. But useful knowledge continues to serve people generation after generation. Fourth, community matters. Many challenges become easier when families and neighbors work together. Finally, resilience comes from habits. The Amish do not depend on a single product, formula, or shortcut. Their success grows from daily practices repeated over time. That principle applies to gardens, families, businesses, and life itself. As evening settles across Amish country, the day's work slowly comes to an end. The horses return to their barns. The gardens rest beneath the fading sunlight. Families gather around dinner tables illuminated by warm lantern light. Tomorrow, the work will begin again. The weeds will continue growing. Nature will continue testing human effort. Yet generation after generation, Amish families have met those challenges with patience, practical knowledge, and steady persistence. The famous $1 wheat formula may capture people's attention. But the true secret lies deeper. It lives in discipline. It lives in stewardship. It lives in the understanding that lasting results rarely come from quick fixes. Instead, they come from simple habits practiced faithfully over time. Perhaps that is why Amish gardens continue to inspire so many visitors. Not because they reveal a magical solution hidden from the modern world, but because they remind us that some of the most powerful answers have been sitting quietly in front of us all along. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed learning about Amish life and hidden traditions that most people never see, be sure to subscribe and join us for more fascinating stories from beyond the Amish world.